Welcome, everyone. My name is Rachel Vandervoort. I am a specialist here with AHA Team Training, and you are joining us for the June monthly webinar, Secrets of a Therapist, Using Family Systems Theory for Healthcare Teams, or basically, inside scoop about how families and team steps go together. Amazing. So we're going to start with rules of engagement, just so everyone has a shared mental model. You, as the participants today, are in a listen-only mode. Hopefully you have your audio already sorted out, but there are instructions there on your screen if you don't. Like we started with our question about summer beverages, the chat is active at all times, and we have 2 people monitoring it. If you need technical support, shout it out, and my colleague Kara will assist you. If you have comments on the content or a question for our presenter, go ahead and drop that in the chat as well, and I will collect those and bring them to her attention at the end. But there will be interactive moments throughout the presentation, so don't be shy with that chat box. We are happy for those that are attending live today. You will be earning 1 hour of CE credit through Duke University and joint accreditation. Hopefully you have your Duke OneLink account already set up, but there's, again, instructions on your screen, in the slides, in the emails, and lots of places. Reach out if you need help with that. But at the end of the presentation today, in order to get that credit, I'm going to have you text the code FEKLOH to the phone number 919-213-8033. We'll repeat those instructions at the end of the presentation, so no stress if you miss them. So I think we have some upcoming events here at AHA Team Training. If you're like, man, I want to see you in person, we have some master training courses coming up in both New York and Texas. More dates also coming in the fall. We have more courses in California and New Orleans. And then we also have our TeamSTEPPS refresher course. This one is aimed more at people who have experienced TeamSTEPPS before, have been through some training, and are looking to, refresh their tools, get re-engaged with their why, learn about 3.0, and just, get up to speed without having to go all the way back to the basics. And then, of course, more webinars coming up every month. Next month, we are featuring non-clinical TeamSTEPPS and strategies around how to do that. That'll be led by our director, Jen. So as always, if there is something you want, something you love, something you're looking for, reach out and let us know. We have the publicly available stuff I just mentioned. And then we also do custom engagements, consulting, advisory services, and we get down into the nitty-gritty with you. So lots of information available on our website. And again, just email us if you need anything else. So enough about us. Let's turn it over to our presenter today. We have Dr. Sanne Henninger. She is not only a licensed psychotherapist, she is also the owner of her own consulting company and a TeamSTEPPS master trainer from way back in the day. We love it. I'll turn it over to you, Sanne.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rachel. Well, hello, everyone. Glad to be with you this afternoon. And thank you to AJ for having me again. TeamSTEPPS is a passion of mine, as is therapy and being a therapist. And my interest is always in how to pull them together. So when I was at Duke and other places that I've worked doing TeamSTEPPS, I always brought therapy and my therapy background into the world of working with teams. And now that I'm back to being a full-time therapist, in addition to TeamSTEPPS, I find that I'm bringing some of those simple TeamSTEPPS concepts into that world as well. So I had the idea, wow, some of what I know and think about, and we therapists think about, and how we analyze systems may be really helpful to leaders and TeamSTEPPS lovers alike. So glad to be here today with you to talk about my 2 favorite topics, therapy and TeamSTEPPS. Okay, so today what I wanted to do is just, again, teach you a little bit about some of the family systems theory concepts. And there are several different theories, and there are lots of different concepts, but I narrowed it down to the ones that I thought would be most helpful, and then thought it would also just be a great introduction for you to look into some of this material. When I looked at the questions you guys posed, some of you had mentioned wanting some resources, so I have that at the end, and happy to answer any questions at any point. So please reach out to me anytime. Then number 2 is just applying it to your teams and seeing how it blends with TeamSTEPPS. And then finally, of course, using some of the skills and ideas to sustain a plan. TeamSTEPPS is a phenomenal program, and it blends so well because the structural family therapy aspect of my work tends to give a great assessment that then points to the TeamSTEPPS concepts. Okay, how many of you, and you're, and I think Kara is going to pull up some questions, but how many of you regularly use TeamSTEPPS? Like, you have it in your team, you've taught them SBAR, you bring the skills to huddle and talk about them. How many of you, for number 1, would say you regularly use it? It's in your life. Number 2, and you can answer it as you wish, number 2 is, how many of you really know and use family therapy concepts, and know the kind of the terms enmeshment, differentiation, etc. And then the third one, has there ever been a time that you have worked with a team or an organization and you just can't quite get your finger on what's going on? So I don't see the results yet, but just they're coming in. So Kara, it says hosts and panelists cannot vote, so I can't vote, but I don't see the results yet. So you guys, Rachel and Kara, you just tell me what the results are. Okay, fantastic. Okay, first question, to regularly use it. Actually, quite a range. Well, this is great, because then I'm speaking to everybody who needs it. Those of you who really know it, and then those of you who don't use it as often. I will get you inspired today. By the end of today, you'll be all about it. And then no knowledge from most of you of using those concepts. I would absolutely not expect it. I don't know why you would ever really do a lot of studying on family systems theory, but kind of makes me happy. So as I'm introducing it, it'll feel new and fresh for you. And then, yes, of course, you have had a time where you just can't quite put your finger on it. And honestly, that is probably my favorite stage of working with a team or an organization, is the assessment phase, right? That's kind of the fun part, is pulling all the pieces and puzzle pieces together to come up with a list of questions, actually, and assessment areas. Okay. So number 1, again, using family systems theory for team assessments. There is structural family therapy. There is Bowen's family systems theory, which is one of my favorite. Most of the concepts today will be from Murray Bowen's family systems theory. And he was a master at taking a family, meeting with them for 1 or 2 times, and coming out of it with insights that were really quite unbelievable. And he was able to organize it into concepts, and then they just kind of would roll with it as therapists. So used for families initially, but then it was transferred over to be used for organizations as well. And then I will also just end up mentioning some other therapeutic techniques and ways of assessment. So there's cognitive therapy, of course. Emotional intelligence isn't really in the therapy world per se, but it's a wonderful concept for organizing, again, assessment areas and next steps. All right, so the family systems and human theories that we'll talk about, and these are the main concepts I pulled: differentiation, boundaries, triangles, cutoffs, multi-generational transmission, anxiety systems and cognitive distortions, and defenses. That's what we'll take a look at. All right, so the first one is emotional triangles. And as you listen to these, you will say to yourself, yes, I know these already, but sometimes I think what happens is when we have a team or an organization where we can't put our finger on it, it gets messy when we start to sort of take notes about what's going on, or even if you're a consultant or you're the leader, maybe interviewing staff, and all of a sudden you have all these notes of the kind of the key players and what's going on, and it gets confusing and it gets hard to move forward. So emotional triangles basically is when two people actually need to speak to each other about something, but it's really uncomfortable. And so instead, one or both of them go and talk to somebody else. So examples of that would be everywhere, right? You have two staff members who really don't get along so well. And so one of them goes and tells their friend and leaves it at that. And that is what creates a triangle. So A really needs to speak to person B, but that's a tense, uncomfortable relationship. And instead, A gets really enmeshed and overly close with person C in order to gain some support against person B. So that's a triangle, and that's not a difficult concept, but it is extremely useful when you are trying to map what is happening in a team. And that is what we therapists do when we are sitting there listening to our family and are taking notes. We're not just taking notes on who said what, but we are drawing pictures and a map of anxiety systems and triangles that are occurring in a repetitive pattern so that we know exactly where to start working. Okay, so I'm going to do a little knowledge test each time that I teach a simple concept, and shouldn't be hard. But which of the following is an example of a triangle? And I'm keeping this super simple. You're not going to get a poll that comes up. Just in the chat box, you can just put A or the two nurses or whatever you like. This is really more for just you in your brain to think what you think the answer is. And then the very next slide, I'm going to show you what the answer is. So, example of a triangle. Two nurses get together to solve a problem about their patient. B, a manager inappropriately involves one team member in a decision process to alleviate pressure to do something different than another team member actually wants. And C, a nurse may confide in a colleague about frustrations with a particular physician, creating tension within the team. So just take a moment. Do you think it's all three, two of them, just one of them? That makes a triangle. And again, I kept this simple, just wanted to have a little thought moments for you. Okay, giving you the answer. So a nurse and two nurses getting together to actually solve problems. I guess you could call that a triangle, but typically we use the word triangle for when it's not effective and it's not actually helpful. So we'll stick to that. Again, triangles can have other terms, but I am using it when a triangle is ineffective. So a manager that involves a team member in a decision-making process because they're feeling under pressure to make a certain decision by another team member, that's a triangle, right? That manager should be either making a decision or talking differently to the rest of the team who may not be agreeing. A nurse may confide in a colleague with frustrations about another particular physician, creating tension within the team. Yep, absolutely a triangle. Okay, next concept is called differentiation, and you'll see I highlighted the words different in the word differentiation because people typically just can't, it's a weird word, so just think different. So when you have a family, for instance, and I'm just going to use some family examples, that is has very poor boundaries. So this gets into that word boundaries too, where everybody is up in each other's business and knows everything about each other and has to know everything about each other and has to be included, and they're highly reactive to one another. Nobody can have sort of their own thoughts. They're expected to always be doing what the rest of the family wants to do. That's a very enmeshed family where it's just all connected and none of the family members can comfortably be themselves or live their own lives. That's a very low differentiated family, meaning no difference is allowed. We need to fuse together, stick together. And in a work setting, that can happen when the team perhaps is disgruntled with the leader or the organization or the profession or whatever it is, and they've sort of come together, but perhaps in an unhealthy way. And if somebody else has maybe a more healthy idea, they'll kind of boot them out. So a highly differentiated person, system, team is when they are very, very far apart. So the boundaries around them are like a tire. They're really, really thick. Nobody can come in. Whereas the enmeshed family, they barely have a boundary. It's like little pieces of sand that anybody can kind of come in and out of. So highly differentiated would mean somebody is totally disengaged, or what we call cutoffs, which is, I'm just not going to speak to you anymore. And so those relationships that just kind of end sort of in a emotionally violent way, and people are now cut off from one another. Okay, so which is the following is an example of low differentiation. So this would be enmeshment. A group of nurses join together and collectively resist feedback about their performance. B, a new employee is immediately influenced by the current staff and the negative outlook on the manager. C, a group of physicians resist efforts at organizational change. And D, a medical director gets overly involved in the clinic conflict and personal issues of staff. So just make a little mental note of which of these you think is a form of enmeshment in the workplace. And then I won't make this too hard for you. Pretty quickly, I'll give you the answers. Okay, all of these are examples of enmeshment. And sometimes these are, it's hard to see when it becomes unhealthy. But again, groups of people resisting feedback, new employee influenced by current staff. So if you have a culture of people that have been together for a long time, they have bonded together over something not healthy, like, resistance of performance or their leader, then the new people that come in may quickly get sucked into that. So that is an example and a symptom of enmeshment. So a group of physicians resist all efforts at organizational change, and a medical director gets overly involved in a clinic and with the staff. Okay, and if you have questions as we go, I tend to get very passionate about what I talk about. So I always welcome a question, and Rachel is watching the chat. So please throw in anything or any comment that you like as we go. Which is an example of a cutoff. A nurse may avoid interacting with a physician whom they perceive dismissive or unapproachable. B, a medical director aligns with another medical director to share strategies. And C, one department of staff withholds information to avoid the person with whom they have conflict. All right, so just kind of get your thought together. See if you got it right. Okay. Example of a cutoff is the nurse who's avoiding interacting with a physician, right? Kind of done. So this nurse has decided that physician is dismissive or unapproachable, and she's cut that physician off. Now that could be a very complicated scenario, but that's what a cutoff is. I'm not speaking to that person anymore. And then one department staff withholds information to avoid another with whom they have conflict. That's actually also a triangle. Okay, multi-generational transmission process. Don't even need to read the slide. Basically, it means the stories that happen in the past tend to impact people in the present, even if the people in the present weren't part of that past. So that those stories of who's bad and who's not bad and who's good, those stories tend to impact people intergenerationally through families, absolutely, and then through the organization as well. So this is a true story from 15 years ago. Nobody could know who the players are, but a true story where at one point on a particular unit, two nurse managers, or I guess same floor, but two separate nurse managers had come into conflict with each other, and made sort of two factions of staff that were now kind of against each other because they had sort of become enmeshed in response to this conflict between the two areas. And lo and behold, 10 years later, those two departments still had extremely poor relationships, and only one staff member from the original two groups was actually still there. So it was just absolutely fascinating. I thought, yep, multi-generational stories and impact happen in the workplace as well. So you won't have a long time in finding the answer for this one. 10 years ago, two nurses had significant known altercation between teams and became enemies of one another. These two groups are still at odds with one another. B, everyone is working to maintain values, and two nurses had remained friends outside of work into their outside lives. So obviously the answer is A. Okay, so a couple other concepts, and then we're going to get into a case study so that we can apply all of this, and hopefully it will help you to bring it into your lives and work worlds. The anxiety systems tend to happen in patterns. So if we know that when so-and-so has a bad day, it really makes this person extremely anxious, which is super visible to the staff, right? Anxiety patterns tend to, anxiety tends to have patterns and happen in patterns within ourselves, as well as amongst people. So keeping in mind that if you've seen it one or two or three or four times, that's probably going to be a pattern to expect in the future. And it can help leaders, it can help staff members to be aware. And of course, in families, we know that kids growing up in very disruptive families, they are extremely and keenly aware of anxiety patterns, and they learn to know exactly what to do and how to handle various scenarios. So it's good to be aware of what those anxiety patterns are, if they're good, if they're bad, if the source of them are good or bad, and how to manage that. Roles may be clear on paper, but they're not always that clear. So again, back to the boundaries in TeamSTEPPS and in the healthcare team world, we think of it as role clarity. And one of the most important activities that I like to do with teams is role clarity, is to make sure that we understand the stressors of each other's role, but also just how each other's role works. Because while on paper it seems so clear in healthcare, I just find over and over again that staff are kind of wondering why are they not doing their job, or why are they stepping into my area, or why am I being expected to do this, that, or the other. So just bringing that concept to healthcare through the role clarity. Okay, a couple of other therapy concepts. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is one of the most simple models, and it just applies to TeamSTEPPS and healthcare as we talk about psychological safety. So psychological safety basically means, in its easiest, most raw form, that if we are feeling in danger, if we are nervous, if we are uncomfortable, if we don't like who we're sitting next to, we are not going to have the capacity to write a poem, to solve a problem we need to solve in our lives. We just can't function. So that red at the bottom basically means physiological and psychologically, we have to feel safe in order to do much else. And so we know that on the left, you'll see a list of areas. And I used to give this to leaders as a handout sometimes to evaluate the psychological safety of their team. But Maslow's hierarchy of needs helps therapists to understand levels of safety and events that happened in the life stage process of a human, and kind of what those events may have meant based on their age. And it all ties back to our safety and comfort. And then, of course, we have cognitive therapy and good old cognitive distortions. I like these for the workplace because it helps teams to maybe reflect on some really rigid thinking. For instance, disqualifying the positive, dismissing this change. They tried it before, it'll never work. All or nothing thinking, one thing goes wrong, see the whole thing is going to be bad. So just as a leader, or as you create team values, perhaps sort of helping people to think about how they're thinking about it. And then finally is emotional intelligence. And again, these are just a couple of extra concepts I wanted to put in here, but this is one of my favorite. And this is a handout that you can readily use if you are helping somebody through conflict, is to give it to the two people and have them fill out these 4 quadrants, coach them one time, and then bring them together. So just a favorite there. Okay, so have to throw in a comic here for emotional intelligence. If we want to succeed as a team, we have to put aside our own selfish individual interests and start doing things my way. So very poor emotional intelligence there. Okay, here is our case study. And I'm going to have you chat here in a minute, some thoughts, and then we're going to put together a plan together. So the case study starts with a staff that are poor performing, and they're kind of known across the system as not being a high performing team. And we're not going to name them, label them. We're just going to say XYZ team. Lots of errors, not motivated, resist any improvement efforts. And of course, in the family therapy world, that would often be the kids. So poor attitudes, no teamwork, low morale. That's sort of what they say. That's why I have that in quotes. Fully aligned with the blame the department and department head mentality. Conflict amongst staff with very poor role clarity, poor communication, no accountability, and again, resisting management efforts. So throw in the chat, what would be some initial responses to this? And you don't even necessarily need to put your initial response, but what do you think many leaders would just initially do if this case study was given to them and they were told, go in and fix that team? So just type in, you can say anything you want. You can make it just a couple words. You could say, get them to start SBAR. Everybody needs TeamSTEPPS training, whatever you think, but just chat away. Okay, so I cannot see the chat. I actually have a couple chats to me privately. So I'll just read those, and then Rachel can give me any others. A couple people have said just accountability, that performance improvement may need to be first. So absolutely. Others have said, and this is just to me privately, is role clarity and setting boundaries. So I totally agree with role clarity. Anything else that I might be missing?
Looking through the chat, there's a really good theme of listening, finding out the why, approaching with understanding, setting expectations. That's really great. Looking for some other team building activities, take an assessment by listening to the group, listen, explore, review. So yeah, it really sounds like the first step is engaging.
Yes, absolutely. So all of those answers are correct, and you would want to employ all of those. So excellent. First step, of course, is the listening and assessing to find out exactly what's going on, because when you have a culture that's that extreme, often there's something else going on. And that's kind of the, how do you put your finger on this? That sometimes you need to investigate further. So when it doesn't feel clear, it probably isn't, right? That means there's some hidden things or unknown things. So as therapists, we kind of go with our gut, like something is just missing here and we need to look a little bit further. So excellent engagement, listening, absolutely, accountability and role clarity, and all of those things. Okay, this slide is a little full. So just listen to me talk instead of feeling like you have to read anything. You can just listen to me talk, and I'm going to talk you through this. I just left it on the slide so that you had it as reference. So here is the rest of the story. And I made part of this up. Some of it's sort of true. Some of it I just saw so commonly over and over again, but it's not a true story. It's basically made up. At the very top, the green person. The green person is a brand new department head who has come into this job 3 to 6 months ago and has been told that the staff are performing very badly, and has started to have some things to say about that, and is starting to do some work to investigate why they're performing so badly. So you'll see a squiggly line from the green person down to the team at the bottom, which is where our symptom sits. So that squiggly line means a strained relationship. Very anxious about the relationship with the medical director, who is in sort of a yellowy orange on the left. That medical director has been around forever, was a part of the department before with the department head, did not engage well with that department head at all. It is furious that the department is not doing well and takes no responsibility for that. The medical director has tried to ally with some of the providers who are there in the gray on the right, as opposed to the medical director. So there's your triangle, right? So the department head should be talking to the medical director and managing that relationship, but the medical director has sort of tried to cut off the department head, and the department head is just doing a good triangulation of avoiding that medical director and talking instead to providers that he or she feels close to. So the medical director holds lots of power, again, because they've been there for a long time, and they're well known, and they're aggressive and difficult to talk to, highly in conflict. So the enmeshment there is with the staff and the providers. So this medical director has gotten their arms around the clinic and has let them know that the department head is the fault of everything. And of course, the staff, as we looked at this case study initially, bought into that. They're all about it. So that allows them to not be held accountable by the medical director or any of the other clinic leadership. The clinic manager, you'll see from the medical director to the clinic manager, there's sort of a dotted line. That means it's a very distant relationship. The medical director just doesn't really care about the clinic manager, which is problematic because the clinic manager should be the one operationally organizing much of the clinic, but the medical director has sort of taken it on. So you can hear there are very poor boundaries, poor role clarity. There's a cutoff between the medical director and the department head. There's enmeshment between the medical director and the rest of the staff. So you'll see that at the bottom, that's our big symptom, right? And that's often what we get. We'll get one of the four of these will be the problem, right? You'll have perhaps the department head is called the problem, or the medical director. Any of these people could sort of be called the problem, where the symptom shows up the most. And yet there's the rest of the story. And so you want to get to the heart of all of this. This drawing, again, is it looks full, but if it was on your mind, you knew the story like crazy and you drew it like this, there's the picture, and you don't have to have notes and sort of think about it and talk about it all day with people you're trying to explain it to. You just have this picture, and it makes it much easier to then know what needs to happen next. So here it is in sort of list form. The department head, we have triangles, we have anxiety patterns, we have boundary issues, role clarity issues, the medical director, same thing, serious differentiation issues, and very enmeshed, poor emotional intelligence. And then, of course, the staff, we talked about them. They are triangulated. They may not have wanted to be in the triangle, but they are deeply in the triangle now. And if they were to try to get out, it would not be comfortable for them living in their clinic with their medical director and clinic manager. Okay, quick solution list. I'm not going to go through this because we're about to go through it step by step, but I wanted you to see that on the left, we have the family systems theory concepts, and then on the right, we have TeamSTEPPS and therapeutic interventions that could be a part of this. So number one, what do we need to do for this department head? Just text in a couple of ideas you have for what needs to happen to the department head and for him, and what kind of support might he need. I will say, and this will give you a little bit of an answer, that this department head was not well supported coming on board, kind of ignored a little bit. So that definitely is one answer. But anything you want to chat in, and Rachel, you can read anything you want to me.
Just giving a few minutes while they're thinking and typing and thinking and typing.
Yep. Yep.
Scott Erickson says validation of what is valid in their experience, as well as executive sponsorship of assignment and mission. Jennifer says what they can bring to the role and how they can fit into the environment. Lorene O'Brien suggested building relationships, integrating the department head into communications.
Yep. All of the above. I don't even have to comment further. All of the above. This department head needs to understand the historical context, to be brought in, to be supported with expectations and role clarity, and positioned better. And I love the word validation. So whatever that the department head is sort of seeing and noticing needs to be heard and validated, and then looked into, so that that department head is supported in managing, for instance, this very difficult medical director who's been around for so long. Okay, medical director needs to set boundaries, and this is part of the department head's job, is they need to have boundary set and role clarity with the department head. So the department head needs to get out of the triangle, stop trying to ally with the providers, and instead talk with the medical director and set regular meetings, set very clear expectations, actually talk directly about the enmeshment. So now, of course, we're not going to use, and we therapists don't use the word enmeshment when we're talking with our family, but we know that that medical director has to start becoming appropriate in that leadership role. Medical director also needs to set boundaries with staff. So it's not appropriate for that medical director to get involved in every conflict and to talk about the department head as though everything is their problem. Then the final step for the medical director is to connect with the clinic manager, who is sort of distantly off on the side there, really with no role. The staff, they need to begin kind of everything that you had mentioned earlier as to what the staff need to become united, to become healthy underneath a leadership team that we have now put into a better place. So the point of this case study, and it's not a difficult one. It's not one that if we did just talk about it for 5 minutes, you would be fine without the drawing, but it's a simple enough one and a complex enough one that we're able to use some of the team concepts and the triangulation and the drawing to help you see. Suddenly it just feels more clear. You could almost look at this drawing without the players anymore and just kind of remember and know what needs to happen next. These lines and enmeshment and distance need to be, they just need to all be lines and not doubled up and the red squiggly ones. Okay, so the larger plan, it sounds like we're kind of moving through. We've gotten leadership better connected. And of course, it's not always that simple. I get that. But we're pretending that all of those plans that we put into place actually worked. And but we're still not out of the woods. So we will continue forward here. Okay, so a plan for the larger department. So let's say now we've kind of, again, we've cleared the top half of the two triangles, and we're now working with the entire department, which is, of course, would include the leaders. I would start, and so I'm pretending like I am working with this department. And this is where I would start. I would start with the leaders. And there are a couple of activities that I would absolutely recommend. And if any of you have ever heard me speak before or any of my other presentations, you'll know what I call the leadership alignment assignment is what I've called it. That has to be number one. And that is the alignment of the leadership team. And I actually have some handouts on that. Any of you can have anything I have or want that is not in this presentation. I'm happy to send you anything because I love this stuff so much and believe in it. Okay, so you're going to get your leaders to be engaged first with some education on all of these theoretical interventions, education for all staff. Get them educated on family systems and some of these concepts, emotional intelligence, TeamSTEPPS, of course, just get them TeamSTEPPS trained for sure. And then, of course, resilience. And then I would say my favorite team interventions. And these are a blend of TeamSTEPPS and some other ones that are just kind of based on my being a therapist. But my being a therapist also means the same thing as being a leader. So as needed, other theoretical interventions. So what I'll do is I'm just going to now show you some of the team interventions that I believe really all teams should have. And then I call it prevention of team issues. And they also later become interventions. So if you have your team values and team norms developed with your team, for instance, later on, if there become some team issues, you can refer back to some of those team norms that have been planned. So number one, leaders attend a monthly training, set up 1-hour trainings with intact teams to complete their education assignments, and in staff meetings, complete one team intervention. That very simple plan I did with a 6-hospital system. And it worked so beautifully. I was really excited. We had all the leaders of the hospital systems come together. We put them in cohorts, and then those cohorts took their education together. And I think we had 3 1-hour trainings, and they would have an assignment in between each of the sessions. And they were just asked to come together on Zoom for 15 minutes and see how their assignment went. And it was all about, again, leadership alignment or team values. And so we had the leaders aligned and educated and ready. It was very simple. It took 3 or 4 hours of their time, and it just was a great thing. So then the staff, you just set up small trainings so that they are aware of whatever it is you want to train them, and the leaders can do this and give them some little assignments to bring back. And this is not always doable because I realize that this example is clinic-based, and in hospital systems, intact teams are not as common, and they're kind of all over the place. But just as a very simple example of how you could potentially roll something like this out.
Quick
Okay,
question from the chat before we move on. Can you
absolutely.
give an example or two of the assignments that you're referring to in that plan?
Yes, actually, that is my next 5 slides. I'm going to give you the actual handout for every single one. Yep. And then just ask me for anything else. But yes, that's coming up next. Okay, here they are. So here is the leadership alignment activity. I called it leadership alignment assignment because it sort of rhymed, but this is the activity. And I would say this is probably the most important activity, just kind of all. This is an activity to bring a leadership team together, whether it's at the top of the organization or it's two leaders who work, as co-leaders for a team. Doesn't matter the level or the number of leaders that would come together. But if you're a leadership team and however you define that, and you have to work together and be aligned in your work and show a united front, this assignment is important. And I have one that's a little more detailed. Again, I'm happy to send one. This is kind of just a abbreviated example. But the questions that would evolve from this assignment are: the leadership team comes together and they may say, what are some issues that we might be having with one another? And before they even have the meeting, they come with some thoughts like, we don't communicate well, we don't communicate in the same way, you like texting, I don't. Just communication. It could be philosophy on how we manage difficult employees. It could be a range of issues that can happen within leadership teams. And then you put that into question and you say, how are we going to show ourselves as a united front? How are we going to present the same answer to each staff member as they ask us? How are we going to show the same attitude towards an upcoming change? Where do we agree we need to focus? How do we prefer to communicate? So you put that into sort of a set of questions, and the leadership team sits down for an hour and comes up with some answers, and then refers to that assignment and those activities on ongoing. So simplified way of describing it, but that's basically what it is. Rounding for psychological safety. For each employee, review the list of needs as your guide for evaluating employee needs. So this comes directly from the Maslow's hierarchy need. Are people feeling protected? Physical safety, are they having some certainty or is there uncertainty? This should help you to provide that. This is my second favorite tool, and it is with the staff. This will help with role clarity issues, boundary issues, people getting a better understanding of each other's stressors, show of appreciation. It's kind of a one package meeting that provides some magic. And I've used it for 23 years now. And it's as simple as this. You can also use it in your marriage. You can use it with your family. I give it to couples all the time. So the idea is, each profession or each person answers 3 questions. One is, I'm going to predict what you need of me. So whether it's a couple or a profession. So if the nurses are being asked, what do you predict the physicians need of us? Then the next question would be, what do we need from them? Then the third is, what do we appreciate in them? Sounds too simple to be true, but the idea is that people are being forced to predict what is needed of them as opposed to being told. So it's just magic. And then you can take notes, put it up into some tasks moving forward. SBAR can be used in amazing ways. This is TeamSTEPPS, of course, and absolutely love it. I have seen it used in so many interesting ways. So an office staff group had decided that that's how they were going to take their messages, just literally in SBAR format. Triage nurses had a group of triage nurses and physicians working together because they were frustrated with each other. And so they came up with an SBAR template on how they were going to take messages. So you could use it for organizing how you're going to talk about conflict. You could use it to organize your task list. I used to use it for my emails. And so I could just very, very cleanly and organized ways do my emails. Okay, briefs and debriefs. Now, this is probably the best tie or easy connector between therapy and TeamSTEPPS. So a brief, if you think about it, a brief is no different than a family having a family dinner time talk of how's the weekend going to go, or who's where tomorrow, and what sport or what chores need to be done. Briefs are a way to prepare for something. So many therapy sessions are briefs for something difficult coming up. I found that briefs were probably one of the number one sort of tools, techniques, recommendations that I used. And it wasn't just the sort of the standard brief, but it was between physicians and clinical staff, even just two of them. Coming together saying, okay, so where are we? What do you need? What works well for you? What doesn't? Right. So it could be very just this day focused, or it could be on how we work together focused. But I really encourage people to use briefs in a variety of different ways. And then, of course, debrief is sort of like therapy too. You're going to take a look at what happened, what went well, what went wrong. But I really believe that smaller groups of informal people need debriefs. And when I worked with staff in the past, I have always had debriefs as regularly scheduled. So every Thursday at noon, or whenever they could do it for 5 or 10 minutes, as a time and a place to talk about what went well, whether it's process improvement or communication with one another. And this is a debrief example for a provider and clinical staff. And they were kind of driving each other, to have bad days. And they sat down and said, here's what I really need of you. Here's what I could do better. And a share of appreciation, of course. Task assistance is how we share our roles. Debriefs and briefs about role clarity in this case is also so important. And then, of course, personal accountability. If you do huddles and you can bring out accountability for how we are working together by encouraging people to be accountable to themselves, you can do it based on your team values or some other metric that you're looking for. Okay, I would say this is the third most important activity, is the development of team values. And this is an activity where the team comes together, whether it's intact or not. It's still possible to come up with team values at different levels and sort of heights of looking at the organization. And this doesn't necessarily have to be the exact same team values of the whole organization, but it should certainly kind of match that. The idea is that you actually look at the problem. So if there are lots of triangles, if it's an enmeshed group who's not welcoming new people, if there is conflict between people and they're not speaking to each other, then we want to come together and establish team values for that team. Okay, and there's an example of different places that you can use that. This I won't go over because this is the facilitating conflict conversation using emotional intelligence, but I encourage you, if you would like that handout, the one that is more specific to conflict management, I'm happy to share that as well. So your takeaways basically are: use family systems to draw a picture of the rest of the story. And assess, of course, for communication, poor psychological safety, emotional intelligence, of course, all of your communication, all the TeamSTEPPS assessments are excellent for that. Implement education, team values, huddles, briefs, and debriefs, and the bridging communication gaps exercise that I mentioned. And then leadership monitoring, do the leadership alignment assignment, and then monitor the team values. So this is the simple high-level next steps for you and your takeaways. And that is what I have for you. Here are some resources and references for you on understanding organizations through family systems theory. And that's what I've got for you. And I just tend to always just kind of go for it like a freight train. And then I and then suddenly I'm done. So I I thank you so much for having me. Again, these are two of my favorite topics ever. I love AHA, and just very appreciative to be here and that you all are here with me today. So thank you so much.
Well, we have 4 minutes left and two, I think, very valuable questions from the chat. So we'll see if I can mesh them together. But Jennifer Gilbert asks about how to approach those who are maybe not open to change, who are resisting a bit. And Eileen Alexander asked about getting advice for managing up or especially in organizations where maybe leadership training is not as structured or provided. So yeah, how do you deal with those tricky cases?
Okay, so the resistance to change, number one is the hope is that you can ally, manage up, connect with the the change agents that are excited about the change. So when you've got the people that are really excited about the change, they're on it. The more that you can ally with them, have connect them with other people, encourage those change agents to be the change. That's a starting place. That's not a great answer because to get to the people who don't, but that is your starting place, is to create the culture that eventually boots out the people who are resisting the change as opposed to the opposite. The other is, like you guys have said in many of your chats about the listening and engagement, would be the same thing. Lots of personal conversations with people individually. That would be, use your psychological safety components, because there is a safety issue there for that person. We don't resist change for dumb reasons. We resist change because our brain is saying that is really dangerous. So you go for what's dangerous for them and try to make that less dangerous. So easy answer. And the second question was
About managing up. So if your resistors to change are above you, or if you don't have strong leadership in those higher positions, how do we support and move through these concepts when maybe the hierarchy is a potential barrier?
okay. They're not so interested. Well, I wish I had more time to answer this, but one quick answer would be um, to do what you can, of course, appropriately without leadership support. So that doesn't mean you sneak around. It just means you do what you can with teaching. You bring concepts to huddle. None of that is risk to anybody. You could tell those leaders that, so you can incorporate some education and ideas just into existing practices and existing ways that you may round on your employees. So you just use the knowledge into existing programs. Then the other is to keep it really short and sweet. So sometimes these ideas end up looking huge, like, oh my gosh, you're talking about a 6-month program, and all of a sudden it's a complete turnoff. Don't call it a program. Just say, I have these ideas. It kind of stretches out like this, but it's more incorporating ideas into existing areas that we have to address some really serious problems. And I have a simple way to do that. So just presenting it for what it is, and it really can't be something huge. Healthcare just has a hard time. I mean, it just can't be huge and time consuming. So, yeah, anyway, I hope that helps a little bit, but
Excellent. Yeah, we are at the hour. So
yep.
thank you everyone for participating. Thank you again, Sanne, for presenting today. We will be posting the recording and slides on our website, and we will send you an email to let you know that that stuff is available. As a reminder, we do have CE credit available for live attendees. There's instructions in the chat, but for those who might just not be on the screen anymore, the code is F as in feline, E as in elephant, K as in captain, L as in Lorelei, O as in Oscar, H as in handsome, and then the number is 919-213-8033. Yeah, and if you could please fill out the evaluation that will pop up as soon as we exit the screen. We love your feedback and we'll continue to make these valuable for our community. So watch your emails for the follow-up and we will be in touch next month. Thank you all so much for joining today.
Thank you.